Somehow we'll find it. The balance between whom we wish to be and whom we need to be. But for now, we simply have to be satisfied with who we are.
Hello everyone and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's torturous Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
I am, unfortunately, a Brandon Sanderson fan.
John.
There will be blood.
Kay.
You know, I don't have a good quote for this week, so here we are. How's it going?
Hello.
And I'm and I'm emotionally distraught, ReaderWarrior. And today we're going to be finishing the main part of Mistborn, the Hero of Ages, at the end of Part 5, Truth, chapters 79 through 82. And
Ooh.
This is it. These are the last 4 chapters, and then there's an epilogue, and then it's over for Era 1.
so I'm sad to see it go.
The end of an era.
So let's get into it before I start crying.
Okay, well,
This hurts
who's
me.
got the first chapter this week?
You do.
I do. 79 is the first chapter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Tut on me then, I guess.
It's always another secret, eh, John?
I guess so. It was a secret even from me. I'm looking at this prologue, or I'm sorry, epigraph, and I'm actually not going to read the whole thing because it's it's longer than my notes for the chapter. So, the first paragraph, has it been revealed yet who's doing these? I don't think so.
No.
No.
Nope. Okay. Our narrator for these epigraphs is discussing how they figure the Mists were searching for a new host, and how they are still a little bit confused about why the power used to create and destroy needed a mind to oversee it, and yet it seems to have a vague will of its own only, tied to the mandate of its abilities. So it then makes our speaker wonder who or what the minds of preservation and ruin were. This is the power of preservation chose someone to become their host. Okay, so the preservation chose Vin long before any of this that we've read has transpired.
But she couldn't.
But
Get-
because
yeah.
Ruin is also godly, knew immediately and did his level best to turn that chosen hero into his own pawn with a hemalurgic spike. Which would, of course, keep the Mists from ever investing her, because if she's touched by Ruin, she can't also possess preservation. Sort of, I guess. We'll find
Start a
out.
post.
The 3 times that Vin did draw on the power were times when her earring had been removed from her body. So that was when she fought the Lord Ruler, and his allomancy had ripped it out of her ear. I should have just read this. It would have been faster.
You know.
When fighting with Marsh and Fadrex, she used it as a weapon, and so she was able to call on the Mists. And then at the end, Marsh finally ripped it out, freeing her and allowing the Mists, which were now desperate for a host since Preservation's last wisp was gone, to finally pour themselves into her,
In other words,
allowing her to
it's Sanderson
ascend.
saying, "Hey, did you get that? The earring was a hemalurgic spike the whole time. If you didn't get that,
And that
here
was
it is."
what was preventing her from using the mists.
Right.
That's why the Mists hated her.
But also that she couldn't necessarily have ascended until after she reached the Well of Ascension. That was like a focal point.
It was like a final step in the attunement process. Sorta, kinda. So as we get into the meat of the chapter, which is very short, it's a very short chapter. Vin is still getting used to how she works now, being a god. She is a nexus of thought that is instantly is not the correct word here, but that's what I wrote. Instantly everywhere.
Progressively?
I think it should have been simultaneously everywhere.
Ubiquitous.
As she perceives it. Oh, that instantly can move. I see what I was getting at here. I should probably start like rereading my notes for continuity. So she's having a hard time getting used to the fact that she is everywhere and that she can focus in on specific spots instantaneously. That's what I was going for with my notes here that are completely chaotic. Something is happening, though, and she follows Ruin to whatever this something is. The place they go to is near the pits of Hathsin, where the terrorists are helping the folk of Luthadel. Vin sees Kanpar giving adium to a younger kandra, not yonder, to sell, and telling him about how he plans to rule one day. Slowly, over time. Vin thinks of how the Lord Ruler said, "You don't know what I do for mankind," and considers the hugely inconvenient precautions he must have taken to help keep the adium treasury hidden from Ruin. Scratching notes into metal, hiding the little atium beads in amongst other metals so that they can't be easily seen by a divinity, all of those types of things. Collecting all the adium in the first place. Ruin reaches out a tendril of power to the kandra and, using the hemologic spikes, takes control and forces them, Kanpar, to speak of the adium. Then we have a scene break where Elend appears and speaks to a guard that he sent back with asking to see the leaders of the camp. And then it breaks back to Sazed, who is with the first generation making their way back into the Trust Warren. As he speaks to a kandra, Tensoon suddenly attacks him. They don't know just yet what's going on, but Tensoon is able to inform Sazed something is controlling him. The first generation proclaim the resolution has come, and Tensoon reaches for something in his shoulder as Sazed blacks out. And that's the end of the chapter. Seriously, shorter than the epigraph.
Okay. In the initial section, there was a bit about she sees the terrorist people and how they gave their goods freely, and that he created a thoughtful, kindly people who would give their last flocks to help those who were starving. Like, even after all that, even after all their pain, they're still helping others. And there's this quote, "The loneliest people are the kindest, the saddest people smile the brightest, the most damaged are the wisest, and all because they do not wish anyone else to suffer the way they do." And that, like, perfectly fits the terroristman.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the people, like the people factions in this book, they're, to me, the closest linked to preservation by far.
Well, I would hope so, since they were the original worshippers of terror. If we remember our homework from
Last week.
last time. Was it last time or the time before? I don't remember. But
Last time.
I think it was last time.
It was
I think
last
so
time.
too, but I'm not sure.
And then Fudge and Compar is my next note. Hate that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to punch
And-
Kanpar.
And let's
Same here.
go back to my previous chapter from last week, where Tensian goes, "How much trouble can Kanpar get in the 2 hours that we've left him alone?" How much trouble
Answer,
could
all
he
the trouble.
possibly get in? Yep.
I've
You
been
know,
wanting to sell
leaving
this
it-
ATM for years.
I directly blame Kanpar for what happens in my chapter. I directly blame him for that. Hate Kanpar.
I don't think that you should directly blame Kanpar for that.
He sends this He sends out the ATM that draws Ruin's attention and also gives the ATM.
I mean, Ruin's attention was already there.
But you
But he
think
wasn't focused on it.
because-
This drew the focus.
him flashing the ATM out in the open was kind of like a big sign to
Beacon.
Ruin, like, hey, come here. This
Exactly.
might be where
Yeah,
your body is.
But Ruin's attention was already on there, on that area, because Ellen was going there.
Yeah, but Ellen didn't know why he was going there. Ruin didn't know really why. Vin didn't even know why she really sent him there.
Well, she sent him there because that's where his people are. That's where Demoux
Yeah.
is.
That's true. I forgot about the people thing.
You forgot that there were people there?
Well, I remember that there are people there, but I'm mainly focusing on the fact that we have the Kandra and the Trust Warren. And I love how Ruin tries to play the God card again. He's like, I am God, you are mine. Worship me.
All of you are mine.
I mean, but that is kind of how he sees himself at this point.
But
And
Yeah.
not wrong to do so, really.
in this specific case, I think it is kind of wrong because the whole idea of the Conjure was to be secret double agents in the very, very end of it. Like, of course, he's
Yeah.
going to think, well, these guys are spiked. These guys are my guys. But little did he know, their whole purpose was just to be a last minute, like, defection.
And you know, that, Swiggity, is a great transition into my chapter.
Does anybody else have anything for this chapter, though?
Very straightforward chapter.
Yeah.
So, chapter 80, so the epigraph, talks about how the Condor people, as Swiggity was saying, were made to be spies. And everyone thought that when he meant spies, he was talking about spies for his government, because makes sense, they're able to change forms, make good spies, but they're also spies for preservation on Ruin, because they are the double agents. They are the ones who will flip sides at the very end when Ruin thinks that he's going to be able to control them. They rip out their spikes and destroy his ability to control them and get to what he wants to get to, which is the ATM.
Which is so hardcore, by
Which-
the way.
Yes. I do have to wonder, do we think Compar did the resolution?
No, we know he didn't.
We know he did.
Yes, as shown in my chapter,
As we are about to see.
Oh, you're right,
as
you're
we're
right. Sorry.
about to see.
You're
in
right, you're
my
right. Sorry.
chapter.
I briefly blanked. I'm sorry, I read this last week when we were originally going to do it.
Oh,
And then people had to get, like, deadly sick. I remember what happens in this chapter now. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
I had mist sickness. I can burn ATM now.
I got sick longer. So
Okay, fine, I'm a steel pusher.
so Ellen is in the terrace camp and Demoux is there. Woo! He's still there. He's still alive. Huzzah. And the terracemen have been helping to. I'm sorry. John just did something funny and it made me laugh and it threw me off for a second. Completely distracted me.
Distraction.
sorry. I didn't know you liked Beavis and Butthead.
Oh boy.
It wasn't just the arms waving in the background. It just caught my attention, and then I heard like whatever.
I am the cornholio. Can you for my bunghole? I was just putting on the hoodie. I got cold.
This is just deflecting the trauma that is shortly to come.
Okay, so let me. So, Demoux is in the terrace camp. So the terrace men have been taking care of all of the people who were able to get out of Luthadel before it collapsed in on itself. And they were let out by 2 guards that we had previously seen Tensoon talk to when he was disguised as Kelsier. So those 2 guards, with the other people that Tensoon talked to, were able to get everyone, a whole bunch of people together. They were able to prepare supplies and were able to evacuate a large number of people from the city before Penrod made the city implode on itself. So they were able to escape and go to the terrace people, and they're with the terrace people because the terrace people have infrastructure to help, which Sazed was the one who told them to create more infrastructure for a large number of people because he was expecting a large number of refugees to end up with the terrace people at some point. So he told them to create the infrastructure, so they have the infrastructure in place to be able to take care of all of these people that are here.
Be prepared.
So, and Demoux is very thankful that these guards saw quote-unquote Kelsier, and is very much thinking this is even more of a sign that Kelsier is watching over us, that he is protecting us, he is helping his people.
Which is preposterous.
Yeah. So, and Elend tells Demoux that all of that he needs him to find powdered metals and have all of his soldiers eat the metals, because he remembers that Demoux and his soldiers were also struck by the mist sickness. Just so that he can figure out which powers they have in order to help combat the Koloss that are currently running towards them. That they know they are going to need to be able to protect from. So we switch to Sazed, and Sazed wakes up after being choked to unconsciousness by Tensoon. He didn't really mean it, And he's surrounded by a whole bunch of Mistwraiths. So a large number of the Kandra people were able to pull their spikes out, and were able to prevent Ruin from controlling them. But as Sazed goes towards the Trust Warren, he sees that there are Kandra in there. One of them is Kanpar, who is leading
Hate that guy.
the Kandra, in trying to push the lid off of the Trust Warren where the ATM is, so that they can get to the ATM. So Ruin can get to the ATM. And Sazed sees, he's like, what do I do? Like, how do I help? And he sees his bag on the ground that has all of his metal mines inside of it. So he uses his steel lock that he has with the speed that he's stored up, and he runs across the room and grabs his metal mines, puts the pewter and iron rings on his fingers, and then slams the doors shut to the Trust Warren and just puts himself as a doorstop. and it's just holding these doors shut, and he's like, I can't do this for so long. Please, whatever God is out there watching, send help. So we flip back to Elend, and Ellen is talking to those soldiers that we were talking about earlier. And he's like, don't know how trustworthy these guys are. They're not really the best soldiers. But he's very thankful that they were able to get the people out of the city. And in the wind, he hears his name. He's like, what? And he kind of ignores it. And then he hears it again. And he hears a voice say, come. And it sounds like Finn's voice. So the urging, the pull that he feels, and Demoux comes with him, with a couple soldiers, and he eventually makes it to this hill, and he sees tracks leading up to a point on the hill, and it leads to a cavern underground. So he's like, oh, Kelsier was able to keep his soldiers in a cavern underground, so this is probably big enough for my people as well. It might be big enough to house some of my people. So we can get them out of the sun, out of the weather before the sun rises. Sun rises, it's gonna be bad. So he goes down and he explores it. He sees the Mistwraiths, and then he sees Sazed, and Sazed is so shocked that Ellen is down here that he just like, what? And he just lets go of the doors, and the kandra come rushing out, and Ellen is able to help Sazed, and they are able to disable all the kandra to prevent them from escaping. And Sazed tells him that there are a bunch of large caverns down here, and there are 4 entrances to the caverns. So Ellen sends Demoux to go start giving orders to get the people evacuated and down into the caverns. And he also tells Ellen, Sazed also tells Ellen that the ATM is here. And Ellen kind of brushes him off, because he's like, my people can't eat metal. Like, this isn't that useful, but the caverns are useful. So they start evacuating the people into the caverns.
Oh, what if they could?
And that's the end of the chapter.
Okay.
No spoilers!
No spoilers. First of all, there's a moment when they're explaining how Luthadel fell, and Ellen is like, oh, so Ruin used our tricks against us. I'm just imagining now Ruin in a room of, like, Inquisitors, maybe a Koloss or two. He's, like, slapping the board, and he's like, here's the plan. All right?
He's got his chalkboard. He's got his chalkboard.
Like, give me ideas. Come on, let's do this. Just had to get that out.
Use their own tactics against them.
Vin led Ellen to the homelands, but Sazed took him to the Trust.
Yes.
And I had one kind of annoyance. When Ellen goes down, he sees all of the Mistwraiths, which, by the way, that would be horrifying to see. Some of them are still using their true bodies to make limbs.
Well, yeah.
How do the kandra know that those are bones, though? How do the Mistwraiths know that those are bones?
It's probably not that they know they're bones so much as, hey, here's a thing that can give me some structure that I can wiggle around and stuff.
But that implies, like, any Mistwraith out in the wild can pick up, like, a stick and just use it.
Maybe
as
they
an arm.
can.
I think it also has to do with the fact that there are no actual bones around as well. So they're like, guess I have to use these.
Yeah.
until I can find some better bone.
That was just a slight annoyance for me.
Also, if their memory of being a kandra is gone with the spikes removed, they may not have memory of being a Mistwraith prior either. So, for a brief minute there, they've never eaten, or have no recollection of eating.
Well, they don't have consciousness at all. They're all animals. So, like, eh. Yeah, that was my only real annoyance. Not even annoyance, just like question.
I like that question a lot. There's like something to do with like how people see the bones, maybe. Like, you know, maybe it's stone, but if it's in the shape of a femur, like it's viewed as a femur, and they are like these weird like investiture creatures, maybe they kind of go off of perception more than we might think.
That is quite possible.
And it might be is shape of feels hard like a bone. Probably a bone. Like
Could be bone.
could be bone.
But it could be.
But then it raises the question, like, could you give a Mistwraith like a set of wooden bones that you made and like just have it as your pet or whatever?
Yes.
Maybe?
Could you domesticate a Mistwraith?
Maybe. No one's ever
Maybe.
tried because
I don't know.
Mistwraith are people.
Spooky and gross. Oh yeah, people.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. People are icky and gross too. So like it stands, but
Okay. Anything else before we get to the chapter?
Just like imagining Ellen returning to broken, destroyed Luthadel and like wondering what the heck went on here, you know? That's a scene I would like to see.
Kind of did. Didn't we?
Well, we saw it in the
Yeah, we
book,
did.
but I mean, you know, I would like to see it in a movie.
Like
I guess.
visually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I envisioned him like
Visually.
walking over like corpses of Inquisitor, and maybe like Marsh was pinned down over a rock, and like it pans down, and Marsh is no longer under that rock.
Oof.
Hmm?
And it would be wild
Okay.
too, because it's the first time we've seen like Luthadel with no mists either,
Mm-hmm.
and just this.
In this entire book too,
Yeah.
they abandoned the set.
City that he like grew up in and tried to protect and did all this stuff, and now it's just crumbled. And it'd be kind of powerful.
Mostly by Vin's hand.
Yeah.
Okay. I will not be reading the epigraph this time. Because it is ridiculously long, and it can be summed up into here's what the deepness was. It was snapping, pushed to the extreme. Anything on this?
And on this epigraph,
Yes, I was proven wrong. The genetic potential for a Mistborn was deeper ingrained. Kay was right. I feel like a child being made to apologize to like a student.
I don't think anybody other than you and possibly Kay knows what you're talking about right now.
so previously on a previous episode, when we had been talking about snapping and about the concept of a Mistborn, and in the previous era, I had said that it was possible for people to become Mistborn, become Mistings, but the ability was locked deeper in the genetic code, essentially. So it was much more difficult for someone to snap and become a Misting. So in this epigraph, it states that Reader had argued with me and said that it was that there were no mistings.
Stick with that. I rescind my apologies. This
Previously,
thing says
because there were no mistings because it was harder for the genetic code to be unlocked. It required a lot more, which is why the mists were created in order to unlock mistings. So there were mistings in the previous time.
I would like to rescind my apology. It says directly, in those early days before the Ascension, the mist began to snap people as they did during our time. But this action of the mist was one of the only ways to awaken allomancy in a person, for the genetic abilities were buried too deeply to be brought out by a simple beating. The mist of that day
Exactly.
created mistings only. There were no Mistborn until the Lord Ruler made use of the nuggets.
I never claimed that there were Mistborn.
It was the whole argument.
No, I said mistings. I
could've
specifically
sworn you
said
said misting.
mistings.
Either
Mistborn.
way,
Never claimed. Mistborn.
Okay. You're getting me all riled up on like my.
you're
This-
kind of invoking your inner Megamind here a little bit.
She's rioting me on like.
So when you
Vin
guys,
watches.
when you guys were going through these books the first time, was there ever like a doubt or a suspicion that the deepness was just the mists?
I thought it was the mists.
It seemed like the mists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the deepness was.
I mean, yeah, you're kind of ushered to think that way.
It's the mist controlled by Ruin. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not really a huge reveal.
No, but it's hey, in case you didn't piece it together, here's the truth.
It's confirmation that yes, the mists are the deepness. We've been thinking that for a while, but here is your confirmation. Yes, 100%, the mists are the deepness.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The stained glass did not lie.
Nope. Vin watches as her people begin to flee into the caverns. She had gotten Ellen to Sazed, and she trusted them. Ruin mocks her and shows her the Koloss army headed for them. Once again, he claims to be an unbeatable mastermind. Vin realizes that even if the Koloss were to vanish, they could not win. The planet itself was dying. In a moment of anger, Vin attacks Ruin. Their powers and minds mix for a moment, but react violently. Ruin is surprised that she could act so violently as preservation, and strikes back. The same thing happens, and they are too evenly balanced. Set up for what comes later. In the Trust Warren, Sazed shows Ellen the ATM store and explains its purpose. Ellen momentarily thinks to surrender, but Sazed tells him to have faith, and that Vin will come. She is the hero. Demoux reports on the available soldiers they have and says that none of them could burn the metals they had. Ellen feels useless. There is no way to win, even if they were Allomancers. ... But these were the 1/16th that stayed sick the longest. And if Yeoman was right about there being 16 metals, Ellen gives Demoux the ATM to swallow. Quote, Demoux looked up, eyes widening, and Ellen smiled. End quote. Anything for that?
Let's go.
Let's go! They got us with the same thing twice. Huh, that's weird. Huh, that's weird. I don't care. It's awesome.
I know.
And Demoux has been rewarded for his faith by being given the most powerful of all the metals. Anything else?
Just imagine, like, thinking you're just a regular guy and then getting the knowledge that you can now burn the most powerful metal.
I just remember the feeling as I was reading this book for the first time reading that sentence, and Ellen smiled, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I finished that book in like 12 seconds.
Yeah. That and Ellen smiled. You could like even see like the gears shifting in his mind. I don't know how, but you can see him smiling, scheming, planning. He's got an idea.
Oh, he already had the idea. Now it's an action.
No,
It
it's
is a
not.
command. It is a go.
So you're saying
Yes.
there's a chance?
Yeah. A voice echoed in Vin's mind as she tries to stall Ruin and the Koloss. She looks, in quotes, down and hears Ellen talking to their troops, riling them up. They had accepted death, so long as they could save another moment of an innocent's life. Charging out from the caves, Ellen, followed by his troops, charging out of the caves, charge at the Koloss. That is not good.
Also,
correct
side
English.
note, real quick. Great speech.
Great speech.
Love
I can't
Ellen's
put it.
speech.
It is a great speech.
Um,
She panics for a moment. How can they stop this army of monsters? By burning Atium. All of them, shining and attacking the Koloss effortlessly. All of them burning the body of a god. This is awesome.
Let's go.
Anything for that part. Ellen's speech was awesome.
It was
This
a good warm up
charge-
for what is to come.
Is awesome. But do we think that since we know Atium shadows interact with each other, since none of them are directly going to be attacking each other, are there many duplicating shadows?
They probably see lots of shadows when they look at each other, but not the Koloss, because the Koloss aren't burning it.
Because I also have to wonder if they even look at the other person, like, they're still not going to attack them, so therefore it won't affect the future,
They would
right?
still see.
Yeah,
they
you'd
would
still see the
see-
shadows.
Because even if you're not going to attack them, depending on what they do, you're still going to change what you do in relation to what you see them doing in the future.
True.
That could cause some problems. Like you go to stab a Koloss and then you see like, oh, it looks like Rick has got that guy. But Rick sees that you were about to stab him. So then Rick's like, okay, well, I guess Jeff has that guy. So then neither of you stab him. Like that could actually cause some problems.
It could.
True.
It would actually also potentially be even worse than that, because if, let's say, you're just fighting a little bit too close together and you both go for a move that would put your weapon between the two of you and you end up hitting each other's weapons or potentially each other because you can't tell from the shadows and you're so focused on the Koloss.
I
I was
love
But
more
that
that's
thinking
kind of like
just, like,
normal battle, I
they all
guess.
get this awesome
I was-
power and then it's just like completely like debilitating. Like, ah.
I was just thinking more so on like a CGI or a graphics level when they have to put this into a movie. And it's got to be difficult enough just to do ATM shadows, but now having to do the reacting ATM shadows for this entire army. Ugh.
That's a lot.
I mean, yeah.
Regular game shadows wouldn't be too bad because you just basically put a transparent next frame over the frame that you're currently looking at,
Yeah.
and you just, advance it like that. But having all of the alternate patterns means you've got to render all of the alternate actions.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's live action, the motion capture.
Yeah.
Madness.
Yep. This was Ellen's first time burning Atium, and it was exhilarating. Their minds reacted before they could think, and their bodies cut and blocked every Koloss strike. The shadows were everywhere. He flies back to the cave entrance where Sazed hands him a bag of beads, swallows it, and returns to the fight.
I like how it talks about how like no one's ever really burned this much ATM at once. They didn't know you could get exhausted and tired from it like he does. Because I
How
can
much
imagine.
ADM do you think you'd have to burn to become a savant? Because these people are as close as anyone in all of any history has ever gotten.
You have to
Don't
do
wanna
it like
think
all
about
day
that.
long, right? For a couple days.
You'd have to.
I
Yeah.
mean, weeks and months for Tin.
A long, long time.
Yeah, and you would have to constantly be flaring it for
Which, would somebody adding Duralumin make Savantism happen sooner?
No, because
Probably
you
not.
can't constantly flare something with Duralumin. And
This
you have
time,
to be constantly flaring it.
this time, Ruin tries to attack Elend, and Vin stops him. It is angry that its power is being used against itself. Ruin pulls away as Vin tells it the purpose of life. It is not to see what happens after it's gone, but to see what it can inspire in its existence. And she declares that Ruin has now lost. Great. Great line by Vin. Sazed, along with others, provide atium for the soldiers. One of them asks where Vin is, to which he says that she will come. One of these people is Daedria Vasting, who was on Ellen's council back in Will of Ascension.
No
Unknown.
way.
Nice.
Hours have passed and bodies are piling up, and sadly, not all of them were Koloss. Atium enhanced the mind, not the body. He was standing thanks to Pewter, but his Seer army didn't have that luxury. Slowly, Ellen heads back towards the cave, but something new arrives. Marsh, with a hole through his skull, smiles. And worse yet, he had atium too. This scared me. Like, all this was epic, and then you have Marsh showing up with atium. Thanks to Compar!
And he's basically Lord Ruler at this point. Because he has both powers.
He doesn't have a full set of both powers, but he does have a considerable number of both powers.
I like that Elend is like taking the Kelsier role of just being like, we might die, but at least our ideology will live on. Like he's
John,
facing down the same thing essentially.
basically, yeah.
Worse
John, this
than-
one's for you. Human was in the tunnels. The people defending the entrance they broke into were dead now. He and his Koloss make their way to the Trust. That's it.
One final mention.
There's one more to come, yes. The atium Marsh got was taken from the kandra that Compar sent out. Screw him! He pushes Ellen's sword out of his hand, forcing Ellen to rely on a dagger. Ellen's metal reserves, all of them were low, and he couldn't do much to fight with a knife for long. Wow, I spelled fight F-I-T.
Fit?
Apparently so. He cuts down more Koloss to get away from Marsh, but his pewter runs out. Even as Marsh says he killed her, Ellen believes that Vin will come. Suddenly, pewter inside of him burns. Ellen pulls on his sword and blocks Marsh's axe. Marsh tries to push it away, but nothing seems to happen. Ellen looks up and sees something white in the air, misty with wings and flowing hair. Vin.
Oh,
With his last, which I love that visual. Come back to it in just a second. With his last bits of power, Ellen moved to strike and burned Duralumin with atium and saw everything. I should have the quote out. I don't. I didn't have the room to write it. But as the vision fades, Marsh's axe is in his chest. Ellen falls, but doesn't feel any pain. He looks at Marsh and laughs. We won, he says. I'm going to very quickly find the exact line, because I love it.
just what in the world did he see when he burned that?
Sight, sound, strength, power, glory, speed. Love that line. He saw everything. He saw the end of this fight, and other things I will talk about in the spoiler section.
Did he?
But I imagine... Did he what?
Did he see them winning?
I think so. I think he saw... I think in the quick, 2 seconds that they show of him burning Duralumin, and it reflecting in his eyes, we see the stuff that happens in the next chapter.
Oh, that's so cool.
very split second. You don't even really realize it, but we know that he knows.
I love thinking that he died knowing that it was all worthwhile.
And then flying in the air with wings
For some reason.
Okay, but I was
Well,
gonna bring this up.
It's not necessarily that she has wings, it's that the mist is flowing out behind her as that the mist is coming out behind her and it looks kind of like wing.
First of all, it looks dope as heck. Second of all, Vin vanished, and I'm guessing her clothes went with her too. We know it, or otherwise, like the clothes fell down. I'm imagining this is like her mist cloak, literally becoming a mist cloak.
I think their clothes do go with them.
I think so too, because we do see the bodies slump down, but
Yeah.
Vin becomes ethereal. Therefore, what happens to the clothes? I really don't want to think about that right now.
They
An
also
actual
become ethereal.
mist
They
cloak.
become part of her. I think they've just become part of her.
But I imagine, like, yes, it's wings, but it's also her mist cloak.
In that moment,
Yeah.
does Ellen know that she ascended, do you think? Or he has some idea?
I think he knows that like something happened to her, that and that she is the one who is giving him power. I think in that moment of transcendence, he knows that she ascended.
I think he knows that she's with him, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
I love this chapter. Anything else before, my heart gets stomped on?
It's just really cool to see. I don't know. Like, I wish I had more to say about it, but I do just want to highlight how cool and good of a payoff it is.
An amazing payoff. I'm at loss for words to describe how epic this is playing out in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. How many books do you read where, like, the main character becomes a god?
Not enough, apparently.
I was gonna say that's a pretty small pool of choices.
Human enters the trust warren, only to find it empty. And that's the last time we'll ever see Human.
What?
Ellen smiles and says that the A-Team is gone. They burned all of it. There's nothing left of Ruin's body. And then he closes his eyes as Marsh raises his axe and says goodbye to Vin. And
Gut-wrenching.
before I get to the gut-wrenching part, this little twist only works because this is all, like, happening right on top of each other. If they tried to split this chapter into 2 or even 3, this would be completely obvious, because we know they're burning the ATM. But it's the fact, like, them doing that not only gave them a fighting edge, but it also cost Ruin everything.
Well, and like we knew that they were burning ATM. Like there was a lot of ATM in the storage. So the fact that they were able to burn it all
In like
Amazing.
15, 20 minutes?
No, they said hours passed.
hours.
Yep. When Ellen is like standing, his uniform now red instead of white. He says they've been fighting for hours.
Whoa.
Which I wonder what took Marsh so long that took hours to get from where he was to this battle, but
I think that also Ruin held Marsh back until Ellen got tired.
that is a completely acceptable answer.
Yeah, until he knew that Ellen was getting tired and running low on metals, so that it would be easier to have Marsh kill Ellen.
Also, like, by having Marsh burn the atium, that also loses him some power. So, like, he didn't want to use that unless he had to.
And Marsh had a very small of atium.
Anything else before the final POV? By the way, Kay, you can update the dead characters counter.
You say that like she's been waiting to put Ellen's name on there.
Yeah.
Every time she's seen me happy about Ellen, I know she has been.
I love Ellen. I don't know what you're talking
You're
about.
making Kay out to be like some kind of weird evil, like...
She is the villain of my story.
Oh, dude.
I killed him. I ruined everything you love. I took it from you. That's Kay.
Speaking of taking everything from people, Vin watches as Ellen dies. She tries to reach down to touch him, but her fingers, like mist, pass over him. All the while, Ruin gloats. But Vin let Ellen die that day in the well, and like Pewter, he stayed for a bit, but she always knew that Flame would die. As Ruin mocks and promises to kill the others, Vin remembers all that she had lost. All the people. Everybody. She would not let them die in vain. Vin attacks Ruin, their powers burning against each other. Ruin does so too, and each of them try to kill the other. Ruin to kill and destroy, Vin to preserve and protect. Protect all those she has left and the legacy of those who have already passed. This was Preservation's plan, the reason he weakened his power, his intent, so that Vin could use it as a weapon. Preservation couldn't destroy, but Vin could do so to protect. In this moment, the Preservation had crafted, Ruin was on the same power level as she was, meaning neither could destroy the other, but Vin could destroy them both, keeping the balance. Ruin cries out in pain as Vin pushes on. Ellen was her reason to live, and he was gone. So she would join him in the beyond and take Ruin with her. She said goodbye, and like mist under the hot sun, vanished from this world.
Very spot on
Okay,
analogy, by the way.
Beautiful analogy. Kay, you can update it to include Vin now too.
Oh, I already did.
Ouch. No hesitation.
I was like, I don't want to update the counter more than once, so I'm just gonna do both right now.
This chapter
Very
hurt me.
sad.
This chapter broke me when I read it. I remember not being able to finish the book because I had to put the book down and walk away. Swiggity, you joked like, how many other books does the main character become a god? How many other books does the main character and their love interest die in the end?
A lot of books.
Harry Potter doesn't die.
No, a lot of like tragic romance books.
Those are boring. How many YA fantasy books like this
Well, it's the same
does this happen?
same thing with like Final Empire when Kelsier dies. You know, you're just like, whoa, I did not expect that to go down like that. But in the end, they all kind of gave up their lives for this. So, like,
And I love...
is it
Sorry.
really a story about sacrifice at the end of the day?
I love that Vin says that Ellen was her reason to live, and that the only reason she hadn't... Because that means she knew that she let herself continue to fight and let Ruin continue to let all of this happen was because she thought there would still be a chance that she could be with Ellen. And it wasn't until this moment that she realized there was none.
I also like in this chapter we get like a rundown of all the crew members that have passed before as well.
Yeah. Orsier killed by under Zane's orders. Yeoman died so long ago.
Yeadon.
Eden, sorry.
Yeoman's
Their names
still
are
alive.
yeah, Yeoman's still alive. They're like cousins though.
I don't think that works that way. Oh,
They're
that's a
not.
bottle of acetone.
I was wondering, like, earlier there was an epigraph saying human had one small role to play left. Did we see that? Like, what was that?
Oh,
It was. Sorry.
I think it was during the battle in Vadrix when the Vin was able to take control of her band of Koloss, led by Human,
Oh, right.
to use them to attack Yeoman's forces to convince Yeoman that the Koloss were going to attack him next.
That makes sense. That's cool.
Or it could be like this exact moment when he was going to be the one to open the trust warrant and get the ATM, and then reveal to Ruin, hey, it's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, super sad chapter, super crazy. Like, I just can't believe that Sanderson was like, yeah, these characters I built up for 3 books, like mist under a hot sun.
Yeah. I just... Even on a reread, this is tough. Like, I knew this is where their characters ended. I knew this is what we were ultimately building towards. And it still hurts. It still feels like it was too soon.
Yeah, it would have been nice for them to have their happy ending, but in this world, like, this is the happiest ending they could get.
And like... Oh! And Ellen's death perfectly resembles Eustis's. And Ellen killed him for bringing Koloss and using them to siege a city. And Ellen committed that same exact sin. So,
Jastes?
under...
Is that who you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah,
he's talking about
Mikal?
Jastes.
Yeah,
Okay.
his friend who brought the Koloss that he...
I think you're the only person I've
Beheaded.
ever heard pronounce the J like a Y.
I Southern California, I guess.
It
But
also kind of mirrors that first
Ellen
Inquisitor,
declared...
just because he gets
But
the
Ellen
same power.
declared... Yeah, but Ellen declared, like, hey, bringing an army of Koloss to siege a city, this is what happens. And Ellen did that. He got the same exact punishment.
Dang, true. And in a way, Sazed was right about Vin showing up too. He just couldn't see it. Didn't really know it was happening.
True.
Because, like, she imbued him with investiture. Like, she gave him power while he was running out.
Yeah.
It would have been cool if it was
Yep.
the same kind of, like, strength we see when Vin does it the other 2 times.
I think it is.
I don't think so. I think
I
that's
mean,
because Vin was meant to become this, so she had a greater tie to the power. This is Vin giving what he can have.
Yeah, because
I think
Vin
it's
had
the same. I think it's the same strength that she displayed the first 2 times that she used the mist. Not the 3rd time when she ascended, but I think it's similar to the strength from when she defeated the Lord Ruler.
I don't know, 'cause she was able to push the Lord Ruler's metal mines out of his skin, right?
Yeah.
And in this one, he was able to prevent Marsh from pushing on his sword at all.
I thought that was Vin. That was Vin. That wasn't Ellen.
Was that Vin?
Yep. That was Vin. Vin somehow either pushes completely opposite for the exact same force, or somehow stops him from having Allomancy for a brief moment. There's just so much I love about this show. But let's get on to the big one. The even bigger one.
Even Sander Lancher.
It's
That would be me.
the Sander Lanch that ever sandered a Lanch. Don't you know?
I'm gonna go through this one kind of quickly, because it is pretty short for how big it is. If that makes any sense. But the epigraph is: once Vin died, the end came quickly. We were not prepared for it, but all of the Lord's rulers' planning could not have prepared us for this. How did one prepare for the end of the world itself? Basically saying that was it. Like, once Vin was gone, everything Ruin had put into motion was now unstoppable, was now, there was no more mists to block the sun, and the ash mounts and stuff were beyond repair.
And the planet was still moved. And yeah.
So, Sazed is watching all of this happen. He sees Demoux come back, pretty much the only survivor of the battle. He crawls back to the cave. He's like missing an arm. And Sazed is still devout in his assertion that Vin will return. Vin will show up. When it all matters, she'll come back and save everyone, just like she does time and time again. But as he sees Ellen's lifeless corpse atop a mountain of Koloss, slowly two bodies appear, and he runs out into the hot sun to discover that one of them is Vin. And,
Can I do a brief pause here?
Yeah.
Because where the fudge did Marsh go?
He went to go
Marsh probably ran.
Like,
count his spikes.
Ruin's no longer controlling him, so he wouldn't have gone to attack more people.
No, I think he just ran away.
Oh, yeah,
I would
that's
think
it.
I would think he drops to the ground and grieves the fact he just killed hundreds, and now he's free, and now he has to deal with all that.
But I don't think he would drop to the ground because he would be afraid that someone would try to attack him. So I think he would run away.
I think he would want somebody to kill him at that point, to be honest. I think he would welcome death.
Do you think he has guilt?
Oh, 100%. All I'm saying is I'm just upset that there's nothing of Marsh running away and just because this is fairly instantaneous, right? Marsh kills Elend, Vin reacts, kills each other, and then they appear right up next to Elend. Where the fudge did Marsh get off to so quickly?
That's a valid question. I guess he just wanted to watch the sunrise.
On a grateful universe.
So, while Marsh is out behind the shed taking a whiz, Sazed sees the body of a young girl who he's come to know quite well materialize alongside another body that he pays little to no attention to with red hair. And he falls to his knees and he's grieving until he notices that she seems to be leaking some sort of energy, which seems to be connected to this vast pool of energy somewhere beyond sight. And he notices that other body is leaking a black, dark version of that. And in this moment of realization, he remembers all the prophecies that he's studied his whole life. Ones that used to say things like, it will be a gender-neutral hero,
I disagree with that one greatly.
So do I, but he has always viewed himself as not being a man. So I guess that's the connection they're trying to make there, because Sazed is a eunuch.
I just disagree with that one.
I'm kind of with you on that one. But some of the ones that maybe have more prescience are like the hero would be rejected of his people, yet he would save them. Not a warrior, though he would fight. Not born a king, but would become one anyway. And he asks, is this what you planned all along? And, even though he still has doubts about it, he takes this power and he basically ascends. There's no other way to put it. He drew in the opposite powers of ruin and preservation all in once.
Though before he draws in the power, he looks at his arms. And he looks down and he remembers the line, he will bear the future of the world on his arms.
Not on his shoulder.
By the forgotten gods.
Not in his hands.
And he, on his arms, which is where his copperminds are, that have all of the knowledge of the previous keepers that they have gathered.
That line, like, by the forgotten gods, is so good too.
Literally, right?
Because there is this whole ancient lore, there's this whole origin behind all of these powers, and like Sazed even touches on it in this chapter a little bit, like, I'll have to investigate, the origin of these later, but there's literally forgotten gods that existed in these lands. So he slams his arms into the twin mists and seizes the power offered to him and kind of draws them in. But I'm glad you mentioned that about his copperminds, because before this he was having the same thoughts that he always has of like, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. And then he realizes that knowledge stored in there is the key to everything. And Reader, you had gone through and kind of pulled out the example specifically, but I'm just going to say he uses the knowledge that the religions have documented through their individual worships to put back the earth, or the Scadrial, the way it was supposed to be. He changes the makeup of humanity to go back to how it was before thousands of years of living on this like desolate ash-ridden planet had either made them evolve, or Rashik had evolved them to go back to normal. And he recreates plant life and animal life that hasn't been seen on the lands for thousands of years, including, very poetically, the flower, the very same that had been passed down from Mare to Kelsier to Vin to Sazed. This picture of the flower, which has been like their beacon of hope throughout these 3 books. He recreates those, and now they spread across the land, reborn again. And that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah. He realizes, hey, this isn't running out. And he realizes what Hero of Ages actually means.
Yeah, not a hero that comes once in an age, a hero to span the ages. And he becomes neither preservation or ruin, but both. And then I love this, like, technically the last word of the book besides the epilogue is just God.
It was Sazed the whole time. He was our hero.
Like, imagine having a crisis of faith and then becoming God.
Yeah. Like, if we go back and look at the hero of ages shall not be a man, but a force. No nation shall claim him, no woman shall keep him, and no king shall slay him. He shall belong to none, not even himself. He always viewed himself as both not being owned to somebody, but also not being free. He shall defend their ways, yet shall violate them. He shall be their savior, yet they shall call him a heretic. His name shall be discord, yet they shall love him for it. We saw that the Terrace people did not really like Sazed back in Final Empire, and Tyndall commented how before this they didn't really like him, but now they want him to be their king. Should I go through all of these, or do we get the gist?
I think you should
I
go
think we
through.
figured it out.
Discord.
Dissenting opinions. Go for it, man. If it makes you happy, do it.
It makes me happy, but I'm also like, there's so much else to talk about. Like the imagery of like coming out, him running out in this, the sky is red, the sun is closer than it's ever been. Literally everything is burning. The only reason Sazed doesn't is because he's touching these powers. Surrounded by Koloss bodies, and you got Elend and Vin, and he's literally standing there like grieving. Like we always say, like Vin was Kelsier's daughter, but Sazed was the one who fathered her these last couple years. He was the one who raised. He's the one who raised her, taught her everything she knew about court life. This was his daughter.
He raised them all.
Yeah, he's kneeling there, grieving the loss. He's the one who officiated their marriage.
Such as it was.
Like,
I remember.
but he's seen
like-
them grow so much.
Well, there's this one
They're
chapter in
dead.
Well of Ascension where they both separately go to Sazed to ask advice about
Yeah.
it.
That's a great chapter.
I
Love that chapter.
But he was there when they first met each other, and when Vin's like, "Oh, I met a guy," and he's like, "Oh, who did you meet?" Ellen Ventura. And he's like, "You met him?"
Spit.
The Ellen Venture.
Oh,
Now
child.
he's- Just- religions were the key. It's just like, oh, there's so much I love. This was perfectly planned and schemed, and the fact that all the religions Sazed told over the last 3 books were all in reference to recreating the world is amazing, oh my gosh.
You okay over there?
There were 2 moments in this book where it was the earring and it was this. Those were the 2 moments where like Brandon Sanderson is now my favorite author. The fact that we have had hints for these for 3 books and he only just now realizes them. Those 2 moments, and this is the one that's the big one, and he remixed the world with literally religion, his faith, the thing he gave up on, then found again.
This is the thing that like allows me to confidently tell people that these books have a great ending. To be able to point to it and like, yeah, Sanderson can close. Like it builds and pays off for sure. In the best possible way.
Beautiful. And like we see him, like I'm envisioning him touching the power, and then the copperminds fall to the ground, and like him expanding and growing and becoming like one with the stars, sort of like the beyond, not the Beyonder, the Watcher in like the What Ifs, and how you see his outline in the stars, sort of like that. And he moves the planet back to where it was, and he brings back animals, and he reforms the geography, and then like colors, flowers, every single thing changes, and then like he continues to watch over it.
And like Sazed,
He does not.
I think you start to take him for granted as you're reading these books too, of just like, yeah, he's like that paragon of goodness character that, you know, is always going to be there. And
He's
yeah,
our
Sazed's
talisman.
awesome. You know, you almost never think for a second, like, Oh, he's like what these books are about.
So good. It's... Oh, I can't... Nothing that Brandon has written so far has trumped this ending to me. There are
You could be
things that
wrong.
have gotten
It's okay.
close. Okay, there are... Jeez. Okay. There have been things that have gotten close. And I will admit, some of his other books have spectacular endings. But this, the attachment I got to these characters, and you can feel the love for each other. And Sazed, with his journey and just every little thing, these last 2 chapters, really, and even like before that, every single detail in these books was drawn out and shown to us. I love this. I love this book so much.
It's tough to top, that's for sure. I just like how, even on a reread, it did get me a little bit emotional thinking about it.
Yeah.
Even when you know it's coming, you're like, come on, buddy. Take the powers.
You can do it. Become God.
So, John, do you still not like this book?
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that as I was kind of finishing the book. As I was kind of finishing the book, I was thinking about it, and I was like, there are not nearly so many like repetitions of "and the earth shook" as I remember them being.
I can quickly check what there was.
I stopped writing them down at a certain point. I think there's like 5 or 6.
There was a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So yeah, I mean, less than I feel like I remember there being in the first place. But I also, this time, it was also more drawn out because we were doing this like a week at a time or whatever, and it was like a little more spread out too. So, but all in all, yeah, it's much better than I remember it being. But I think,
Got my finger right.
yeah, I would say it's at least on par with any of the other Mistborn books to this point. And the ending is obviously worth any, I guess, distaste you might have developed for anything in between. Which really there's not. I mean, it's solid.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Kay? How do you feel about this book as a whole?
We're not done yet.
True.
I mean, yeah, we got one more. We should
mean,
talk about this stuff during the final closeout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really like this book. Mistborn are my favorite books. I have also reread these the most. They were the first Cosmere books that I read. So, these books are always gonna have a really special place in my heart. So yeah, I love the ending. I think it's amazing. Yeah.
Cool.
I guess that's gonna wrap it up for this episode.
Yeah, because there's nothing left to spoil.
No. Well, next time we're going to be covering our last episode of Mistborn Era 1 in the Hero of Ages. We're going to be covering the epilogue, the Ars Arcanum. That's also going to include our ranking of the book. But right now it is time to head into the spoiler realm. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, we have basically finished this book. This portion of the series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here because it is likely we will talk about everything and anything. But if you are up to date, feel free to stick around because it is likely that we will bring up details you may have missed or plot threads still yet to come. So much on that last bit. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, or whatever it is on this podcast, and don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions to CosmereConnectionspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. But if this swearing must part, then my name is ReaderWarrior, and I have been joined by Swiggity Swoo,
Thanks for having me.
John,
We'll see you again in the beyond.
Kay, and Ken.
Have a good one.
Don't forget, there's always another connection. Back! Spoilers!
Woo.
Yes, welcome.
Chapter 79. This I actually have a lot for.
Okay, well, go ahead
Get
if you
into
have a
it.
lot.
Yeah.
Okay,
Get it.
investiture over time does gain sentience, though.
Right.
Are the shards special in that they will not gain sentience?
It's not that they won't. Well, hold on. Let me think about that again.
I broke him.
Oh, okay. So here. I think, and this is speculation only. I don't have any wobs or anything like that because I don't read those to back this. But here's my speculation. Okay, so the power, freshly divested of its vessel behind that, gives it direction, is a little bit intelligent, like animal level intelligence, right? It's kind of it knows do the thing, but it has no it doesn't know how to do the thing. It just knows to do the thing. So it seeks out someone to help it, like a dog asking for help solving a problem.
Like what we saw with Teravangian.
Right.
Okay. And also, it takes time for investiture to gain sentience.
Exactly. So and because it's a full shard level investiture, it's already got some of that forming almost instantly, and it just kind of immediately reaches out. Also, I wanted to say it's a fraction of a whole, but all investiture is a fraction of a whole. So it doesn't really work, but it's different though. I don't know. I don't know. I guess there's only one way to find out.
Well, we can also look at Elantris with the fact that I don't think that devotion and dominion's powers have gained any kind of sentience necessarily.
But
Even though they don't have a mind controlling them.
Two counterclaims, one for, one against. Isn't there that point when he goes into the pool and a voice tells him to come on in to kill himself? Isn't that intelligence? And counter to the other side, he splintered them so that the power is ultimately destroyed and at its weakest, right?
But
So
when he goes into the pool, he doesn't die. He just goes into the cognitive realm.
Yeah, but he doesn't go into the cognitive realm, and this is where it was Brandon's first book, so we gotta forgive whatever inconsistencies there were.
Still working out some of the finer details.
Because technically, because we know that all the investiture was put into the cognitive realm, and that it makes it very dangerous to go into. And a lot of people think it's basically like a black hole or a supernova of investiture, where you'll die immediately, and that's why the people go through the perpendicularity and then die, because it's basically jumping off of the.
Right. But what happens if you're immortal and you go into some place that would kill you instantly?
Yeah.
Exactly. So somehow he would have. God, why is my brain blanking on his name?
Raoden?
No,
Odium?
Raoden's the prince.
Which person are you?
Which
trying to
person are you
remember the
talking
name of?
about?
Galadon?
Thank you, Galadon.
But Galadon doesn't go there. Raoden does.
What?
Raoden does, because he's got the.
Clearly, it has been too long since I've read Elantris.
Okay, we'll move on then.
Stay tuned
It's-
for season
But
4.
so to your point about the door and it not gaining sentience, so the smaller the particle, I guess, of investiture, the longer it will take for it to reconnect with more investiture and gain that sentience. I wonder if also that the size of that particle of investiture has anything to do with like limiting the overall intelligence that it would be able to achieve.
I think it's mainly because like Odium splintered it to a point where it can no longer do that.
Right, which is what I'm driving at. It's splintered so small and so fine that it's
Yeah.
essentially what do they call it with milk when you do that?
Water?
Not pasteurized. The other thing. Ah.
Not from the Midwest, sorry.
Google, help me. Emulsify. Emulsify.
Okay.
Right? Is that
Hey,
the
that's
word?
the thing. Well, yeah, I don't think so, because that's what they use in Rhythm of War to combine water and oil.
Yeah.
On to my second note. Remember when we said we couldn't argue for something for another hour?
No, it is emulsify. I am correct.
Okay.
They needed something as an emulsifier to bring the two things together because they were still particulate. They were still separate, so they needed a thing to bring them together. But anyway. Yeah,
Is
it's
that
too
what-
small to reform,
Makes purified door an emulsifier?
I guess.
Yeah.
I always thought the
don't know.
analogy was kind of, it should have been enzyme or possibly catalyst, but, you know.
This makes me wonder who or what the Minds of Preservation and Ruin were. AT and Laris. You would think Harmony would know that at this point.
You kind of would.
There's also a later line where, like, when he's ascended and the nameless body of Ruin, I'm like, you know the name at this point, though. The power should know the name, right?
Yeah, but he's still pretty freshly integrated with the power, so he may not have, I don't know, gleaned that through osmosis. I don't know how you get that divine intellect, but maybe it hasn't happened yet at the time of writing.
I just think it's more so maybe Brandon didn't have a name, or the fact like it's not at all important. He was Ruin in this book. He was not.
No,
AT.
he totally had the name because he had Atium.
That's true. I think it was more so just the fact he was always Ruin in this story. He was not ET.
Right.
That makes
And
sense.
he would have been nameless to the people of Scadrial.
At the end, Marsh ripped out, freeing her and allowing the Mist, which were now desperate for a host since Preservation's last whip was gone, excluding the whole Kelsier thing.
Well, but they,
Right,
were,
well-
they were still desperate for like an actual host because like Kelsier was like barely able to hold on to the powers.
Artificially, yeah.
Yeah.
And
'cause
Also, it
even in
wasn't
Secret-
Kelsier, it was his cognitive shadow.
Even in Secret History, like Laras says, he seemed to act more in Ruin than in Preservation.
totally Kelsier. And John, I believe you stated that who was it that stated that preservation had begun searching long before the events of this book?
Yeah, it was in my epigraph.
Okay. If you check the annotations, preservation started this 16 years before the well filled up. Preservation.
That's a long time.
Yeah, I know.
That's over a decade.
No, but I'm just saying preservation has a timer where he'll just be at peace with the universe, and then 16 years before the well, oop, up and at him, gotta stop the thing. Because apparently the last time too, 16 years before that, that's when he started, picking Alendi out.
Well, it has to be 16. It's cosmerically important.
I know. I just find it weird. Like he wasn't aware the entire time to slowly build. It was just like in the last 16 years, this was what he did. Only in the last 16 years was preservation directly doing stuff.
I don't. Does it like expressly say that? Because I don't think that necessarily has to be true.
It says that preservation only looked for Vin 16 years before the well filled up. Let me check the actual. Where do I have to? Do I really have to go search? Give me a minute. 79. Loading.
Okay, so while he's working on that, I would like to point out there was a piece of the prophecy that we actually quoted, or reader specifically quoted, in this episode that has yet to come true.
Which part?
And that is, his name shall be Discord.
Yes. Okay, preservation did need someone to control its power, and it did seek for a host in which to invest itself. It began this search and what mind it had left about 16 years before the return to the Well of Ascension, just as it began a search for a new host before the return of the previous time.
Okay, so...
Well, I wouldn't necessarily argue that that's not saying that it was 16 years the previous time. It was 16 years this time because that's how old Vin is. We don't know that Alendi was also 16. Or if Alendi was older.
Oh, Alendi was not 16. I like the detail that god metals shine more brightly.
That is a cool detail.
Yep. Fudging compar. Gotta bring that up in the notes. And there is a notation that a Mistwraiths have a lifespan of 50 years. Yeah, that's weird. It's in the annotations, man. Mistwraiths, not kandras, have a lifespan of 50 years.
Okay. So part of that blessing is...
longevity?
Chemical adium? Question mark?
Or it's just like... maybe the Mistwraiths don't know how to continue to exist and just like eventually die. While kandra can continue to seek a self.
Maybe. I don't know. That seems weird to me, though.
I'm in agreement. That's why I wrote it down. Anything else for 79?
That is so odd.
Chapter 80.
I have a question.
Sorry.
So, it seems like Tensoon removes his spike here. But
yes.
Obviously,
Correct.
we
Yes.
know Tensoon does not die.
Correct.
Right, he just transforms back into a Mistwraith. So presumably, by the time the end of the whole story has happened, it's been less than the 50-year lifespan of the Mistwraith. And he was able to relocate his blessings. Potentially at the hand of the newly minted preservation. Or,
I would say
Harmony.
like less than like 24 hours. Maybe when Harmony was fixing everything, he gave the kandras back their blessings.
Perhaps.
And then, well, that just raises another question I had, which, technically we'd want to wait a little bit, but I guess since we're on the topic, like, what happened to all the Koloss?
Actually, in the annotation, it says the Koloss are inside the tunnels, meaning those ones were spared. And we know that they got turned into an actual species, not just a hemalurgic construct.
Yeah, so they're able to. So Sazed changes their anatomy so that they're able to actually like reproduce without needing to use hemalurgy to make new.
Okay. I've been wondering that because when you get into Alloy of Law and it starts talking about people with Koloss blood, it's like, well, how does
Yeah.
that work?
We'll
So,
cover-
fun story that's more than a little embarrassing for me. There was a signing for, I believe it was Alloy of Law. It was either Alloy of Law or Steelheart. I can't remember. Because I went to both of them and they were within 3 months in my area.
Nice.
But this was the first time I'd ever been to a signing or anything like this. And I desperately wanted to ask a question. And the only thing my brain could come up with is exactly that. How are Koloss having a civilization when they're, made by the spikes and stuff? And I was like, don't get me wrong, I love the Wild West Mistborn. That's amazing, but I'm really confused by that. And he kind of looks at me and he just goes, Brandon looks at me and he just kind of goes, go back and reread the first couple of chapters. And I just felt like such an idiot. I felt like such an idiot. So yeah, that's my embarrassing. Yep.
Of Alloy of Law?
Yeah.
Well,
After Harmony's ascension, the Koloss were transformed into a tribal race that could breed. Koloss raised Koloss-blooded children, those who can turn into full Koloss at the age of 12, in a coming-of-age ritual where they choose to accept the requisite spike or not. Those who do not accept the spikes leave and live outside the tribe. Outsiders can choose to become Koloss through the switch. The Koloss as a people have made a vow not to harm the Terrace people, which entitles Terrace men to safety and a degree of respect among them. The changes in the Koloss and their breeding subsequently allowed some Koloss-blooded to become Allomancers. How this achieved is unknown, but the Koloss with the powers of Allomancy appear to be known in the roughs enough to be recognized.
Okay, fair enough.
I did not know. So basically, you have a species, but then it's sort of like how there's a Mistwraith, then a kandra. Now we have Koloss-blooded that then can become Koloss.
Via a hemalurgic spike.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 80. My only note was Asliadin. There's a woman, Asliadin, who
Yeah.
who Demoux keeps catching the eye of. That is his wife. Because Brandon promised that Demoux would live a long, happy life, get married, and die, peacefully. That is his wife. Who eventually goes... What?
Yet to die peacefully because he's still alive.
Does Aslan
Still out there hopping
Roshar
worlds.
as well?
Because she's the daughter of a Terrace Elder, a member of the 17th Shard, and has work of her own throughout the Cosmere.
Are you just reading 17th Shard right now?
I'm making sure my facts are correct. Yes.
Okay, well, let's move on.
Just for that part, but I knew that other part already. Anything else for Chapter 80? No, Chapter 81. I forgot to bring this up in the actual chapter, but Vin uses a weakness as a strength one final time. Until she could not attack Ruin or touch him without it hurting her. So she takes that and uses that as her weapon.
I was wondering what you meant by that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was also wondering what you meant by that.
Sorry. Well, it's the same old, this is what is not good, but I'm going to use it for good.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
common theme in this one, but I'm saying this is like the final time Vin does it. I'm not ready to let go of these characters.
Yeah, the last thing you would want to do, even as a god, the last thing you'd want to do would be to kill Elend in front of Vin.
Yeah, not a very smart
No.
move by Ruin.
I love the... Have you guys seen the TikTok where what if Vin became Harmony and she rolls up on Terravodium like... He's like... Gloating, oh, look at all this power at my fingertips, and then Vin just like, hey, I'm here to stop you. There's nothing
She
you can
would
do to
have-
stop me.
She would have probably become Discord.
I still feel like even as like a combination of ruin and preservation, she would become protection.
That
Which
doesn't fit.
she ruins to protect. Like that was the whole point of this, is that she is a mixture of both.
But no, I don't like that. No, I don't like that.
Okay, if Vin were to take both, what would she become then?
She would still be Vin. She would still be Vin.
Honestly, Vin being a character of so many contradictions, I can perfectly accept her having, you know, both preservation and ruin. Anything else for the painful 81?
Oh, I don't know. This, I guess it's just cool to see like a shard attack another shard. Like, this is how
This
it
is the
happens.
most. This is the most we've ever seen a shard do in a fight.
Is it? Do we think that's the only way it would go down? Like, if one of them attacks another one, and they're on equal power levels, they'll always cancel out? Or is there like a way where, if one shard has more strength, they could just consume the other one? Like apparently Odium has been taking out shards, right?
Yes, and he's done it in a 2-to-1 scenario. Whether it was at the same time or one after the other, we don't know yet. But there was actually a point where I think it was still Race as Odium said something along the lines of, my power is infinite. If it was just a matter of having more power, I would be able to do what I wanted to do anyway. Because it was something to do about taking up another shard.
Yeah, if Odium doesn't want to, so instead of taking up the other shards that he comes across, he destroys them because he would rather destroy the power than take it up, because if he takes it up, then it would corrupt his intention. He wouldn't be Odium anymore, like we see
Right.
with Sazed taking up preservation and ruin. He becomes something new, something different. So, like Raise as Odium didn't want to take up the power of other shards, even though it would increase the amount of power that he has, because it would change his intent.
But that's just the thing, though. It wouldn't necessarily... And maybe this is part of something that was at one of those signings or a wob that I got from, like, the 17 Shard podcast or something. But infinity plus infinity is still infinity, and all of the shards are infinite.
It's not a matter of infinity, it's a matter of the intent. And really quick...
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Okay.
you wouldn't get more power, you already have infinite power.
So
It's just a different kind of infinity.
Preservation and Ruin are special because their powers directly oppose each other. And that's why whenever they touched each other, they burned each other, basically. Like an acid and a base. I could be wrong on chemistry there.
Yes, a little bit, but that's okay.
Okay, but they reacted against each other violently. Vin was able to use the intent to beat it. It's the matter of the intent. So it's a matter of how you would be able to use that. Odium, being a god of passion, can move quickly. If it was like a fight between Odium and, which is the first, Ambition? Ambition's the
well,
dead one, right?
he Devotion, Dominion, and Ambition are all dead.
But like, so it's a matter of how they use their power, because they have unlimited ammo. If we're going by the analogy, they have a gun with unlimited ammo on both sides because they have infinite power. But it's a matter of how they're shooting it. Basically, are they ricocheting off, or are they aiming straight? Devotion is having faith that something will happen. Dominion is probably just going to keep attacking straight forward. Odium is passion, and he's going to just do what best works in that moment. It's a matter of how you use the intent to overcome the other shard's intent. Vin was able to use both what tiny bit of ruin she had and preservation to encompass ruin. That's how I think shards fight, is by using their intents in ways that we have not really seen.
That seems to track.
I guess we'll have to raffo because that sounds pretty hinky to me.
Because either that or like it has to do with the champions, in which Elland is 100% Vin's champion and Marsh's ruins.
I wouldn't necessarily say that Marsh is Ruin's champion because we don't see Ruin imbuing power into Marsh. His power into Marsh.
He makes him the most hemalurgically charged Inquisitor.
But that is different than imbuing your power into someone. Like Vin is directly imbuing her power into Elend in that moment.
We don't know. The whole champion thing kind of bugs me a tiny bit anyway.
I mean, also, we're saying this as if Vin and Ruin were actually making champions anyway.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they were.
No.
Regardless. So.
No, they were not.
Which is to say, like, a capital C champion, like, as a term. Not, like, just people that fight on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Anything else for 81?
I'm good.
I don't know why I'm flipping the page. It's the same page. 82! So Vin wasn't the hero. Skadriel does die. And then it gets reborn. And now you can bring up the Discord thing.
Yeah, so, his name will be Discord, and he's going to be Discord. Yep, he's not going to stay Harmony. He's going to become Discord, and he's going to be the big bad evil guy of all of the Cosmere.
I have complete faith in Sazed. I trust that everything has been a part of his plan, and he knew exactly what was going on, and this was the best solution. I have full faith in Sazed.
I don't know. We'll have to see. You're just saying this based off the epilogue of Lost Metal, right?
That, and it's just kind of become popular theory.
You're conforming? Wow.
I like this one. It makes sense. It jives. Plus, I mean, yeah, the epilogue of Lost Metal is pretty compelling in that general direction anyway.
Seemingly so, but to me it just seems a bit too easy. A bit too obvious.
Also, I feel like there's some supporting details in Tress. If I remember right, doesn't the Dr. Kandra start have slightly red eyes, implying corruption and being a creature of
I
harmony?
think that he just has red eyes because he red eyes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think that that's what is
I don't know.
talked about in that. Is it he just likes having weird body parts because it freaks people out, and he likes to freak
Yeah.
people out.
So he
I think
wants to
that's
be
all
a
about
White
it.
Eyes.
Maybe if like his eyes glowed red, I could see it, but it's just more so like, hey, I dyed my eyes. Because we see Meilon like change her face, her skin color, to be like,
And also, like,
Fair.
constantly in that that book, he's like, he has like an ear on his hand, or
Yes.
like
Yeah.
like, and it's like doing weird shit like that just to freak people out. Oh,
Yeah.
What if
I
he
need
had
to reread
extendable
Secret
ears?
Projects. I haven't started them over yet.
yeah.
very
There's
excited
so
for the
much
new
to
one.
do.
Oh boy.
Yeah, at the time of recording this, it's just been announced that there's another secret project.
It
Ugh.
just went up.
I just
There you
bought a
go.
condo. I can't afford this shit. Ah!
Don't worry, I bought it. I'll send it to you.
Thank you, reader. Little
I was
quid
gonna
pro
say,
quo.
Exactly.
you could do the, like, what is it, like $30 one? That's
Just the secret
the
project.
The secret project.
Yeah, the digital.
That's probably what I'm gonna end up doing.
That's in my price range.
It is. What was it last I checked? Let me check back kit real quick. It is now over 800% backed. It is octuplicated 8 times as much money as they thought they were gonna get. Ugh. 16 million instead of their 2 million. Okay.
They definitely thought they were gonna get more than 2 million.
Yeah, they just put that there
But
so
they-
that they would guarantee funding. Like they
Yeah,
had to pick a
like-
number, basically.
Yeah, that's it.
So what happens to Sazed's copperminds? I find it weird that there's the whole thing of the bands of mourning, but we know for certain that they find those and those are just ATM, while Sazed's metal mines kind of disappear.
Well, they're empty now.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there becomes a whole myth around Rashek's metal mines. Nobody wants to talk about the god that we have history of.
That's because nobody knew what was going on with him. So they figured his metal mines must be like weird and mystical and powerful or whatever. But with Sazed, they were just lumps of copper and etc. at that point.
He left
Yeah.
all that information into a book, I guess, so you can go read.
That too.
I want a fun story on. I like the Indiana Jones stories.
Well,
I want one about what happened to his copper mine.
If they could
we
make
already
you
have an
fly,
Indiana.
there probably would be one.
We already had an Indiana Jones story. We can't have a second reader. That's not how this works.
That's what fanfics are for.
Oh boy.
Oh,
There were
do
probably
we have
some pawn
any
shop
other
somewhere.
things? Do we have
Uh,
anything else to talk about?
I don't like that either one comment about gender. No, he's neither male or female. I understand, like, he never saw himself, like, he lost his man parts, but, like, he still was a man. Like, he still
But-
saw himself as male.
But he never thought of himself as, like, as a real man. As a
Also, you
as a
look
full
at it-
man.
From the standpoint of your culture, which is different from other cultures in the world, not to mention cultures of made up worlds.
I don't like that one. I don't know if this is. I just don't. That one just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Understandable.
I mean, and that's fine. Like,
I
You're
say that's
allowed
the
to be made
great
uncomfortable.
thing. Yeah, that's the great thing about these stories. Is you're allowed to dislike things in them. You don't have to like everything in it.
Yeah,
Like,
I kind of wish, like, either, like, get rid of that one, have it be the words were gender neutral
I
to
don't know.
imply it could be man or woman, or have Sazed be gender neutral. I
That
feel like-
wasn't a thing at the time of writing.
I know, but
Just saying. Like,
I know. I just feel like, oh, he cut off his man parts, therefore he's not a man. It's just kind of
I agree. Didn't
Kinda
age
bad.
super well.
yeah. And all religions have a piece of truth in them. That's it. Anything else for this chapter set?
I'm kind
Yeah.
of surprised. So sometimes in the Cosmere, when people are ascending, or when they're like touching this infinite power, we get like a voice from the beyond. I'm kind of surprised we didn't see that here.
Can you give an example?
Well, I guess like the unite them thing, or like I'm pretty sure when Lightsong.
yes. So that was autonomy? Which one's the one on
No.
Malthus?
Endowment.
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 That was Endowment speaking to him.
Okay,
And that was the infinity that he saw, was that infinite sort of well of colors and thought and whatever.
so those are coming from
Yeah.
a vessel of a shard.
From correct.
It's not
The Unite
at
Them's
the very
like
least
a
from the shard.
recording.
okay.
The Unite Them's more so like a recording.
That the unite them still gets me because like we don't really know who sent like the visions, really, right?
Stormfather.
Tanavest.
Stormfather.
It was, well, so Honor
was-
was the one who ordered them originally and like put them and like compiled them and gave them to the Stormfather and said,
Right.
Stormfather, send these to
Specific
People.
individuals that are
Well,
worthy.
send these to a person that you choose when the time is right. And the Stormfather basically went, well, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. You'll do.
The drunk guy that genocided people. You'll do.
Well, it was originally
Gavilar.
Gavilar. Thank you. It's late.
That would have been worse.
And there are mentions that other people also saw the visions as well during the high storms.
I love how you said like he compiled them, so like Honor was like at a computer, like cut, edit that part out. No, that's a bad take. No, let me record that. I don't like
Ones
the
that
visuals on
still-
that one.
The ones that still weird me out are the ones where you have a sort of interactive oh damn it, what's his name?
When he's in like
But
when he
they're-
becomes the farmer.
No. When he is actually interacting with the guy who wrote The Way of Kings.
Noadon?
Noadon,
well-
thank you.
Well, so that's also
Connection.
like he's
Spiritual realm.
Which one are you talking about?
The one where they're making bread and like bounding through
That-
the city like they're in Aladdin.
But that one was not a vision that the Stormfather gave him, though.
Right. But it still weirds me out because it doesn't fit and we don't have a good explanation for it.
Yeah, what was that?
Okay, that's an argument for later. Finish up Mistborn.
This is the spoiler section. It's
Yes, but we
Free-for-all
have been
mode.
doing really long episodes. I'm trying to cut us back. This one's already at like 2 hours. We can argue this right after we finish, and we're going to argue it when we get to Words of... That was Words of Radiance, right?
No, that one's Oathbringer.
Oathbringer.
That was Oathbringer. Okay, we'll argue it when we get to Oathbringer. Okay, for
In
now,
3
can we
decades.
finish Hero of Ages?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure we have.
We have.
Okay.
We've
that's just-
successfully moved on.
That's just about going to cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us in our randomness and predictions. We cannot wait to cover what is next, obviously. Goodbye-bye.
Road of
Have a good
homicidal
one.
hat trick.